www.offthecorner.net. You're watching the Fact Project here on the DJ Tiger channel. Shout out to DJ Tiger. The Fact Project, of course, is where we try to convey some facts and some information to members of our community. We have slated to join us today Mama Pam Africa, who's a longtime journalist. She's a longtime activist. She's going to talk about someone who was a longtime journalist. And she's been on the front line of the struggle for many years. Today we want to talk about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. Now, I personally learned about Mumia Abu Jamal in 1985 on a trip that I was on in the city of Philadelphia. In Tice, who was a female MC, was on stage talking about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. And that's why I first heard the name. That's why I first learned about the story of Mumia Abu Jamal. I'm having an issue with my computer here. So, who is Mumia Abu Jamal? Now, Mumia Abu Jamal is an American political activist and journalist who was convicted of murder and sentenced to death in 1982 for the 1981 murder of Philadelphia police officer Daniel Faulkner. While on death row, he wrote and commented on the criminal justice system in the United States. That's a brief overview of who Mumia Abu Jamal is. There are any number of documentaries online that talk about the case of brother Mumia Abu Jamal. This particular one is called, I'm going to see if I can share my screen. It's called Manufacturing Guilt. And this talks about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal and how the evidence against him is sketchy, to say the absolute least. And I'm doing this on the fly here, so everybody forgive me for trying to get this together here. So here we go. Mumia Abu Jamal, Manufacturing Guilt.
People really don't understand what the climate was in Philadelphia in the years before Mumia was arrested. Because if they did, they would look at his arrest and his trial in a different fashion.
In 1982, Philadelphia journalist Mumia Abu Jamal was convicted of first-degree murder in the killing of police officer Daniel Faulkner. On the July 4th weekend, he was sentenced to death. In 2001, federal court judge William Yon overturned Abu Jamal's death sentence as illegally imposed and unconstitutional. Yet Abu Jamal remained on death row for more than 10 years while the Philadelphia district attorney continued to pursue his execution. In 2011, the DA's office conceded defeat, and after 30 years on death row, Abu Jamal was transferred from solitary confinement and joined the general prison population, where he continues his appeals. Mumia Abu Jamal has said numerous times, "My only crime that night is that I survived." In fact, the effort to legally execute Abu Jamal has only recently ended, but the first attempt to kill him may have been made on that fateful night of December 9th, 1981. Abu Jamal was also critically wounded, shot through the chest, and found near the prone body of Daniel Faulkner. And the evidence that convicted him for the murder, well, it doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
My mic was muted. No, so stay with me. We're going to stop right there. We have...
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you well.
Okay, because I had to have the phone up to my ear. For some reason, it's not playing loud.
Okay, so we have with us Queen Mother Pam Africa. Peace, Queen Mother Pam Africa. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, I like Warrior Queen, Pam Africa.
I like that. Warrior Queen, Pam Africa. Yes,
yes, the Warrior Queen.
Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. There's a lot of great things that are going on, surrounding MOVE, surrounding Mumia, a continuous fight, and, and the political prisoners.
Okay, so we know a lot about your work around Mumia Abu Jamal and the MOVE organization, but you're a new guest to the program, and I'd like to introduce the audience to new guests. So, as it relates to Black consciousness, how did you first come into activism in Black consciousness?
Okay, I lived in Powellton Village, and I had no politics whatsoever. My background, the Panthers, and I was brought up feeling the Panthers, the VLA. I didn't even know about them. None of that stuff existed for me. Muslims, my father, and he ran a business where they sold corn liquor and made corn liquor and gambling and everything like that. So he had to keep us away from anything in the movement. So he thrust that fear in us of anything that was he didn't like Martin Luther King, and I'm gonna say it how he quoted. He said, there's just a nigga that want to be out there and get people beat up and so that he can look good. The Panthers was a bunch of women beaters, rapists, and don't get fooled, get drugged into there. And he would always show me the bad stuff that was happening. I mean, what the media portrayed, the Panthers, as. And on May 20th of 77, I believe I'm 26 then. I got, 2 children, but still, no dealings with the Panthers or anybody like that. And a confrontation took place between the MOVE organization and the city. In fact, the MOVE organization came out on the city in 1977, brandishing weapons and stuff, and was letting them know. No longer will you be able to beat, maim, kill without a like response. They held their weapons up in the air. Some people had baseball bats. They said, when you come at us with those blackjacks, they held them baseball bats up. They said, expect a like response. And, and then they, one sister said, a response. Oh, no, when when you're here and you move up on us, and, you can expect to get hit first. We're not waiting, so that was that 1977 confrontation. And I lived down the street for them for about a year and a half. And I had never seen dreadlocks. And, and I was like, what in the world? I was trying to figure out what kind of pores did they have? They had those big things coming out their head. And my father termed them as the mop heads on the corner. And when I read about them, because look, I used to go the other way rather than pass by them. And because that's how I see them as them and other names. Behind reading the news media and the awe and the fear of our parents, of people, of something that they're not familiar with, and can cause people to get beat up. When it's the same thing going on in Palestine, the misinformation, the fear that they throw in us, those are the fears that I had of coming close to MOVE. May 20th, 1977, I'm sitting on my step smoking some wacky weed at that time, and 3 other people, and I happened to look down the street, and I saw MOVE with a weapon, and they was walking back and forth, on their platform. And I was shocked to see them with weapons, because all I ever read was, where the cops was beating them up, they was thrown in jail, thrown out of jail, whatever. And but here they are up on the corner like this. And it had to be the wacky move that made me decide that I'm going up on this corner and see what's going on. And when I got to the corner, I'm looking, cars was going, they wasn't coming near MOVE. They was going past MOVE at breakneck speed, getting away from them, right? So I sat down there on the on the pavement, and for the first time, I was listening to what it was they were saying, but I was more amazed with the support that was around there, that the people who was coming in, yeah, that's right, move. I remember then they was pointing out the cops in the crowd, and they said, over in that car there, you know, the man's over in there, you know, I'm like looking at this stuff, like I fell off another planet somewhere and then wound it up in the midst of a war, because finally the cops come in, but you know, I'm a fast, you know, feed that. And that was my first introduction. The door cracked that day, and I stepped into the revolution. And I never turned back. My learnings was quick, was fast, and because from that day on, it's been a constant, you know, transformation. First, I was a sympathizer of MOVE and still scared of the red, black, and green, but you know, people were coming together. And my house, I opened it up to be a house where people can come and we can, you know, strategize how we was going to, you know, support, you know, MOVE, right? And, you know, and I think this would be like a 1 or 2 week, you know, thing, because what I'm hearing from the people and, you know, the community there, and there was some people who came around when the cops had completely surrounded, and you know, had a disdain for MOVE, but the majority of the people, the children, the students, and because in Powelton Village, and it was like the urban removal there, and they was bringing in college students, white, black, of every hue, and into the poor community. And when they were coming there, they would get beat up, so forth and so on. And MOVE was the one who built a relationship between them. That's how I wandered up into the black movement. That's when I met Sonia Sanchez. That's when I met the Muslims. I met Panthers. I met, you know, people from the BLA, and you know, not that I was all friendly, you know, with them then, and but as it turned out throughout the years, and you know, that's my family, all of that, and you know, and I grew with that, you know, through the guidance of MOVE, and you know, I didn't understand. I used to call myself a sympathizer. And MOVE was said, do you know what a sympathizer mean? You know, I'm thinking, they said, you're not a sympathizer. So I said, you know, then what am I? They said, you're a supporter. A sympathizer is someone that's sitting there looking to see what's going on. And, you know, they're like, oh, that's a shame about what did you hear? And, you know, and they might tell each other about it, you know, and, you know, might be in sympathy. But I was a supporter. I became a supporter on May 20th, 1977, because I seen something from Black folks that I had never, ever seen before in my space, in my time. I saw Black folks standing up to the police. They were saying about the beatings, the maimings, the baby killings, and you know, that had been going on through the years just because they spoke up against the injustice there. And then I got to learn stuff that I didn't know before, you know, because when I remember looking on TV, who was protesting about the zoo, and I said, well, what the hell, these people are crazy, why are you protesting the zoo? Then they was protesting Puppy Palace. That's a place to sell animals, you know, birds, this, that, and the other. And then they was protesting the reservoir. They was protesting churches. They was protesting, you know, Jane Fonda. And I did know about her from exercise tapes. I didn't understand that she was, you know, was somebody that spoke out against the injustice. You know, I'm learning, and you know, that day, what was going on then. They was protesting the zoo because of the life that was snatched from Africa, just like we were. And putting cages, you know, put on display for a daggone dollar, slave, you know, mentality. And they was trying to take that away. Puppy Palace, you know, where they had cats and dogs, you know, in the window, in the sun, on a piece of mesh where the feces would go down. Little babies that had been snatched away from their moms, their pops, and you know, and bar before, you know, a darn dollar. The reservoir, and what the heck? This is our water, and you know, explain to me about how, you know, the water was being poisoned and stuff. And back then, I think you only had a couple of different kinds of waters, and now there's rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of water. They explained to us how if we were progressing then you got to understand that at one point there was doctor offices, in our communities, and one hospital, in the whole entire area. But you said if things is getting better, then explain to us how come there's drugstores damn near on every corner? There's hospitals on every corner, although today they're getting rid of a lot of that stuff. And, the progress, that the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and that's exactly what it was. It was an act, because they wasn't cleaning up the water, it wasn't cleaning up the air, because you have, every time you turn around, in fact, when you go into a drugstore stuff, there's rows and rows and rows of things to, help you breathe, because the air is so foul, it's so polluted, it's so messed up. I'm learning all these things that day, things that I didn't want to hear nothing that Move had to say on May 19th. I didn't know where that was, Malcolm's birthday. And on May 19th, I was not aware of that. But May 19th, I hated Move. May 20th, I was getting the understanding while they had guns on one side, the police had guns on the other side, and they was getting ready to come in and kill Move. And, some kind of way I was the one who broke the barricade and was telling people to come on because it was obvious they were getting ready to kill Move. They talked about Kent State before, that. They talked about Attica and all those mass murders and things, the murders that was happening in different communities and stuff. And it was getting ready to happen before my very eyes. That's the shorter version of what brought me into the movement.
All right. So we're going to talk about Move. We're going to come back to that before the end of the hour. But we want to now begin to talk about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. Before we even get into the case, who is Mumia Abu Jamal?
Mumia Abu Jamal is a black political prisoner who was framed in 1981, and because of the work that he was doing, he had the ability as a black and young journalist, and to go into the community, bring back a story. Me myself, and when he started with me. And I had never did interviews or anything, and he guided me through me. When I heard my interviews on the radio, it was like, whoa, was that me? He added all the things to enhance, and he was just a natural enhancer himself. Because he appealed to all of the community. It was clear that he was a black man, that he was a father, a journalist, and a friend in the community. They had named him the man most to watch, and one of the big white books called the Philadelphia Magazine. And he touched all the way across the board. And they wanted to take him out on December 9th, 1981. He was driving a cab. The reason why he was driving the cab because of his particular style of journalism of telling the truth. And he did it with Move. He did it with people that they called it Barbary, where they put people that, and I'm finding out a lot of the people that was in there was people who was rebelling against the injustice, here, especially the white folks that was in there, because they kids, when they was, sticking up or, joining, a movement against them, they said, they got to be crazy. They threw them in there. Mumia went in and told the black story, the Puerto Rican story. He told the story of those that was there, that wasn't just there behind the fact that their parents thought they was crazy because they was rebelling against this government. They was there because of the sickness that this government produced in people. And Dad, I don't know whether I'm answering your question or not.
Oh yeah, no, you answered the question now. Mumia was a journalist, and I also understand that he was exposing police corruption within the Philadelphia Police Department. And so this is why they had an axe to grind with him. Is that accurate?
Yes, and he was a Panther. And once a Panther, always a Panther. He at the tender age of 15, he went to California. And and he became a writer, for the Black Panther newspaper. That's where he got his journalistic skills from. He was taught that, there. And they tried to frame him several times because as he grew as a youth, and he came here to Philadelphia, and him and a brother by the name of Reggie Shell, who mentored, Mumia, and who, helped him be the bona fide, oh my God, revolutionary brother that he is, with a journalistic skill, that was able to, bring people into the movement. Not only that, I need to tell you, when Mumia was a kid, his sister tells it, in one of her stories, and I want to let people know, you can Google Mumia, on YouTube, and you can get him from a baby all the way on up to now, and everything that happened to him, the legal, in the case and things, in case, we run out of time, because you're talking about the 40 years that he was in jail, and I'm trying to tell you a little, too, about the child who was before then. Mumia used to go around. He lived in the projects, and, mom was a widow, and she had a set of twins, Mumia, Lydia, and two other sons. I'm losing the number. But Mumia used to get up on Sunday morning. There was a lot of different churches, Jewish churches, Greek churches around, where they lived at. He went to the Christian church. He went to, to where Muslims were gathering information. And the information he would get, this is coming from the neighbors. They said that this young child would gather that information and fix food and get the other children, and they would sit up under this big tree that exists today, in the projects, and teach them, what it is that he learned. And, when he went to, when he was in school, and, he was known as a peacemaker. In fact, the name Mumia Abu Jamal, Mumia, came from a teacher that was there. And I can't remember what Mumia means, but Jamal came from Mumia Abu, at Mumia, father of Jamal. And he has a son named Jamal. That's how he became Mumia Abu Jamal. That's where that came from.
Okay, understood. Now, the night that Mumia was shot and Daniel Faulkner was shot and killed, what can you tell us about that night?
Okay, December 9th, Mumia was shot, beaten, framed, thrown in jail. Mumia was a cab driver, and he was letting off a fare at 13th and Locust. A high, it was anything go district, okay? Drugs, prostitution, male and female, and his brother was a vendor. His brother was helping young sisters to come, to get off the drugs and all. And he was changing them around. So, and it was a high area where the cops was involved with having young women, in a prostitution, when people can look at a movie called Framing the Execution, go to some of the movies. Poor Veronica Jones. She was one of the prostitutes that was, down there that was young. But he had let off a fare, which was his brother, and he's sitting there, he's writing his, whatever it is that you write up after you let your fare off. They keep, records. And he happened to look in the mirror, and he saw an altercation happening. A cop was beating this guy. He didn't know it was his brother. So Mumia, with the journalistic and and the father, he knew he was black, and which made him, come out that car, because we living in the Rizzo era, and Rizzo, was a baby Trump, and so he run across the street, and to see what's going on. He got shot as he approached, and he goes down, but what they did, I do not think that they purposely framed Mumia. I think that when they found out who they had actually shot, and and they know damn well it wasn't Mumia who shot Faulkner, and that's in the story as well too, and it wasn't Mumia's brother, so the frame up started, because when you listen to the story that the cops tell, and they said Mumia ran up behind Faulkner. He saw his brother getting beat. He ran up behind Faulkner, shot Faulkner in the back, in the back. Faulkner spins around, and he, before, Yeah, he shoots Mumia. No, hold on, because I got a couple stories here. And Mumia, they say that Mumia stood straddled Faulkner and shot. And shot him with them. Faulkner was rolling to the left, he was rolling to the right, super whitey, getting away from the bullets and stuff. And bang, bang, bang. And they missing, right? So then they said Mumia shot Faulkner, in the face. Shot Faulkner managed to get a bullet shot off on Mumia. And the problem with their scenario is, number one, Mumia was shot. If Faulkner was falling, then the bullet should go up in Mumia. The bullet went down in Mumia. When they had him in court, they said what had happened. The bullet ricocheted off of off the bone and turned around and came back through. And when they said that Faulkner, that Mumia kept missing, shooting him, and the problem with that is there was no debits in the ground. A photographer by the name of Polikoff, was the one. He came up on the scene right afterwards, and the cops hadn't really, was just beginning to arrive. So he's taking pictures. He's taking pictures of the ground, and he's taking a picture of everything. And he got one picture where the police officer got a gun in his hand, which they were saying was Mumia's. And the police officer said they never touched the gun. And here he was with the gun in his hand, no gloves, no divots in the ground. And the way that the bullet, went up, there was a white woman that was in her window, and she said she was looking out and she saw the beating of Mumia. She said she seen them beating him so bad, and they rammed his head. This was when all the cops came up, rammed his head into the water plug. That's why he wound up with this big gash, in him. But that was that scene that night. And if I left anything out, please Google. Google, or either go to YouTube and pull up Mumia's name, because you have the whole stories and things. You have, the lies that they tried to tell, that which is completely disputed. That night is not the night that they found out about the divots in the ground. That came up years later. And where Polikoff gave up his pictures, that night he went to the police station and told them he was on the scene, and here are the pictures. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years later, and did he find out that the pictures were, that stuff he had was never used. And a guy from Germany, Michael Schiffman, got the pictures, because there was a picture in the Enquirer. That's the one where the cop was standing there with the gun. One picture shows that the cop hat, they said they didn't mess with the scene. The cop's hat was on the car, on the top of the car, and in another scene, the cap, his cap was on the ground, beside him. And then they said that Mumia had a 38. The cop was shot with a 45, and and then when it came to the trial, they said they didn't have the bullet, they lost the bullet. This is evidence that Mumia, gun didn't shoot. And he carried a gun because he was robbed as a cab driver. He was robbed as a cab driver. That's why he had a weapon, on him.
Now, let me ask you this. Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish.
They that night, they arrested Mumia, on the scene. And, the first thing you do when it's a shooting, you take a paraffin test. They say they forgot, but here's the thing here. Okay, you forgot. Mumia's clothes, if he shot all these shots shooting down, the powder blows back on the clothes. The clothes disappear. There's no clothes, there's no bullet. There's so many reasons that they should have let Mumia go. And the destroying of evidence. But what was you going to ask me?
Yeah, so Daniel Faulkner was shot and killed in this exchange, and
yes.
And so the two questions. Number one, what was the first shot that rang out? Was that the shot that shot Mumia as he was approaching? What was the first shot that rang out that night?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, and so that's your answer.
I do know that Mumia said it as he was running. That could have been. That's more than likely the first shot.
Okay.
No.
So now let me ask you this.
Because no. Hold up, because I got to back up on that. Mumia, they could not say when Mumia was shot.
Okay.
At what point he was shot?
Okay. Now,
because some people say it was arriving officers that shot Mumia.
Okay, so arriving officers. That's interesting you say that, because I'm understanding, and you have to tell me if you know anything about this. Daniel Faulkner was beginning to speak out against police corruption in the.
He was investigating.
Okay, and
yes,
so
that is a true story.
Okay, so he was somewhat of he was becoming a whistleblower against the Philadelphia police. What can you tell us about that?
Right, and he was also, if he had a camera that night that disappeared. And there's a guy by the name of Arnold Beverly.
I was coming to that. Go ahead.
Who said that he was hired, to take Faulkner out because of, Faulkner, they found out he's undercover and stuff. And people were saying, oh, that's somebody they got out of jail or somebody that's died. None of that's true. He wasn't in jail, he wasn't dying, he was a man that came forth to tell the truth. But not only did he talk about the murder of Faulkner, he also talked about the murder of other cops. The torture, he talked about the whole ring. And it was in a affidavit that Rachel Wolkenstein was trying to put in the court. They wouldn't take it. They would not take the affidavit. It's not just about the Faulkner murder. And she has that affidavit. I don't know whether it's online, but Rachel Wolkenstein, she's an attorney. She used to be, she's a former, lawyer on the case. She was the one who found Arnold Beverly. And my thing is, okay, if you don't think that, they supposed to take evidence. When somebody's saying they got evidence, and it's them who killed Faulkner, you're supposed to investigate it. And if you find it in truth, then say that then. But you just don't take it like, oh, that's crap.
Yeah. So the rest of the police patrol personnel, they were beginning to turn their back on Daniel Faulkner because he was beginning to speak out against police corruption.
Yes, and it was known during that time, when cops spoke out, not during that time because it still happened to this day, to beat them up, to lock them up. There was a cop that in the May 13th bombing of our family, who, jumped down and helped rescue Mumia Africa. And, they tortured him. They would, set off firecrackers. He got beat up. He got beat up in City Hall. This is how bad this stuff is. They used to beat up cops. They had a place where the F.A.C.T would have it was their headquarters. Blacks and Latinos was filing lawsuits because they got beat up inside there. We get to drinking that liquor and that beer and stuff, and the Wuhan, Ku Klux Klan stuff, come on from out of them. They turn around and look and see Spick, I'm saying how they would say Spick and niggas, and they just start beating to the street and stuff. This is the climate that, was happening, then. They didn't, under Rizzo regime, there was no hiding, the Klansmen activities. And it also involved black cops as well as, black folks on the street, Latinos.
Okay, now let me ask you this. I understand because Daniel Faulkner was beginning to speak out, not only was his fellow police patrol personnel beginning to turn their back on him, but they had little tactics they would use. Like, if you're an officer that they're turning their back on, if you in an incident and you call for backup, they don't show up, hoping that you might get unalived in that situation. So I'm understanding. You have to tell me what you know about it. Daniel Faulkner was shot and killed by another police patrol person. You know anything about that?
No, I know that Arnold Beverly said that he did it, after we has, his partner, he had a partner who didn't come in that day, he was the one, he stopped Billy's car, and they said that the reason why they stopped it because it was going the wrong way down the street. But you know, when you look at the Polikoff pictures, Billy's car was going the right way. And everything that they said why he stopped it. And Faulkner also was going with a lot of the young women. And like I said, you know, if you look into the into the documentary films, and Veronica Jones was a young prostitute, and you know, he decided he wanted her for himself. And he stopped the other cops from beating her up, because the cops would beat up young prostitutes. They would rape them and you know, and beat them up. And that had happened to her a couple of times. And he took a liking to her. There was another young sister named Pamela Jenkins, who was a prostitute, who also, she took the 13th, I think it's the 13th district, 15th district police station down, where it was blown up about, you know, the corruption and things that was happening there. This young sister took them down, and she was the prostitute of, I think his name was Bill, or it could have been Ryan. And one of the two of them, they all hooked up, you know, right in there. And you know, she told the story a whole lot. It was a big thing, and you know, everything got, you know, it got exposed. And they told her that anytime she get arrested, for them to for him just to make the phone call, she said she got in a lot of things, and you know, all she did was make that phone call, and they stopped. And when it came to her with the story of Mumia, every time you turn around, that young sister, I had her, you know, in a press conference and things, just like I did Veronica Jones, and you know, and they were telling their stories. And here's the thing: the guy that used to prostitute her, I think his name was Gary Bickle, or Ryan. You know, one of the two, and one was Falcon's partner, and they always in this all this stuff together, but. The guy, they all went to jail, but you know what he wound up getting a job as? In a youth counseling thing when he got out of jail. And you know, we was trying to make a big thing about that, you know, bringing up the Pamela Jenkins story, and on the course, and on the media covers what they want to cover, and you know, they don't what they don't, because it's all covered. A lot of them is all working together.
Now let me ask you this: you mentioned Bill, that's William Cook, that's Mumia's brother.
Yes.
This whole dust up happened because Mumia was rushing to the defense of his brother. Where is Billy
It
Cook?
turned out to be his brother.
Turned out to be his brother.
Didn't know who he was running. And you know, the journalistic, you know, the thing, you know, there's a black man being beat by these, you know, by this white racist cop. That's what he saw, and he was running over to, you know, to intercede in that, and you know, and that's when, you know, they looked up and saw the cop looked up and saw him, and that's, you know, when the altercation, you know, happened.
Okay, now let me ask you this: the Mumia's been in prison for 41 years. I have yet to see an interview or anything with Billy Cook. Where is Billy Cook?
Billy Cook, Mumia's brother. Let me tell you about that night. You know, you had a mother who had two sons, and you know, Mumia just knew, and he was the goodness within the black community that spilled over into the white community, because they wrote the book about, you know, the great journalists and stuff that, you know, Mumia, you know, is. Billy, they had both of them. Billy was beaten bad too. And you want to know where was Billy that night?
No, where is he now? Like, I haven't seen him speak publicly. Like, what happened to Billy Cook?
Oh, you know, whenever he spoke out, they went after him. And you know, he had a stand, and they destroyed that stand. They they separated Mumia from Billy, you know, and you know, in the case, and they had him on. Was it police, you know, some disorderly conduct, and they let him go. When he got out of jail, he immediately came to Mumia's case down City Hall. When they looked up and saw Billy, and they immediately went after him, threw Billy and his brother out the courtroom.
So wait, you're saying Billy Cook was locked up also?
Yes, he was locked up that night.
Okay.
And then some years later, show you how because everybody's like, well, where's Billy? Nobody's seen Billy. Maybe Billy did it. Maybe he's on the run. None of that, on the run, hiding out. Yes, hiding out from who? The police who was trying to kill him. And he surfaced in Pittsburgh. And that was a case where the prison was giving the governor, and the governor was getting information from the prison, and they was passing it on to the district attorney and stuff, and it was prosecuted. So there was a hearing, on this particular thing. And Billy came and he walked right over where I was at. He was disguised, and we talked for a minute, and then he left, and next thing that morning, and people called me from Philadelphia because I'm in Pittsburgh where the trial was at. They said Billy's picture's on the front page of the Daily News, and I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, he was at court, and they mentioned that he was talking to you, and that they had been looking for Billy, so forth and so on, and so people want to know where was Billy. And Billy was, you dealing with terroristic cops. Mumia had a whole movement behind him. I mean, a whole movement behind him. And Billy's testimony, and then when he did come forth, and Rachel Wilkenstein got the affidavit. She got his, and she got the affidavit of Arnold Beverly, and there was another affidavit. They didn't take none of them, and they kept asking, well, where's Billy? Where's Billy? And they didn't want Billy to come forth.
Okay, where is Billy Cook now? Is he still around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's alive. Okay. Yeah.
All right. I'm just saying that because I haven't seen an interview. I've spent time on the case. I haven't seen an interview, any public statement, or anything from him at all.
Well, there's the affidavit, and there's the in investigating, you'll find that out that they burned Billy's stand, and they also put threats on him. So he went under for a minute, and he came back up, and the same thing was happening. During the harassment by the police, just like Veronica Jones, the key witness, the one that Veronica Jones is, in the documentary, it'll show that, and I met Veronica Jones in jail, and I was in for one of them contempts. I was always, doing contempt stuff. And we used to run in the yard, and she started running with us, and they was giving us our diet, and because there was so much controversy behind the August 8th and massacre that they tried when they cops got killed. I'm talking about moving now, but I met her in jail, and she told me her story. I told our lawyers the story she told me. Next thing I know, and we in the courtroom, and she's there, and she had none of our lawyers had been up to see her, but in the documentary, she tells the story that right after I left 2 days later, my contempt was finished. Two white police officers, plainclothes officers, came up to talk with her, and they offered her the same deal that they offered a girl named Cynthia White, which was lucky. She was a prostitute, on the streets at that time, and they kept changing her story till Cynthia White got to the story they wanted, but they didn't know about Veronica. But when Veronica was in jail, they came up there and told her they can offer the same deal that they offered lucky Cynthia White, or she could do time. because she had some other charges out there on her. They told her, you got a baby home, a 6-month-old baby. You got a daughter in junior high, one in high. They gave her the whole thing. And they told her that if she testified for them, they'll see that she didn't get no time. So not long after that, a few days later, a week later, I'm not sure what, we sitting in the courtroom, and all was, this day was cops all around the wall and stuff, with their weapons and things on, this is a matter of record, okay? And I'm trying to say something is going on, and then they brought her out. And she's like looking like she ain't sure where the hell she's at. What's going on? She said she thought that she was being brought down for the case, those 2 cases she had, passing bad checks or something. She said she's sitting there and she's looking around and she looked to the back, and there was the 2 dudes that came up to the prison, the House of Correction. They came up there and, interviewed her. They was there, and she said she's confused. She don't know what the heck is going on. She said then she turned and looked and saw Mumia at the table, and, she knew him from the papers. She didn't know him, really other than that. She said here she is sitting there, thinking about the timing that she had. And Judge Sable, she said she went to tell the story that they wanted her to tell. And then she said, no, they offered me the same. And Sable said, get her off the stand. They took her off the stand.
Okay.
And a witness so that she did not say what she was getting ready to say. And she was brought back some years later for Mumia's post hearing. He had been found guilty, and he was working on a post-conviction hearing. That was 81. This is 95. When they bring her back, 95 or 96, they bring her back in, and they have her on the witness stand, and Sable, the same judge that framed him, you would think that they would get a new judge. No. And let me tell you about Sable. Sable was a retired judge, and he was known for his crookedness. He retired not long after he found Mumia guilty of murder. When they had the post-conviction hearing, which was 1995, this case started in 81, and Mumia was before Sable in 82. That's the judge that found him guilty, well, the jury, so forth. And here we were in 95, and Mumia is talking about the injustice that happened with him. And this was nothing unique to Mumia. This is the outlandish stuff that goes on with all people. There before, she's before him, and when she go to testify, and it was years, it took to find her. And when she go to testify, before she did, Judge Sable says, I want to warn you about perjury. Because they knew that she was coming as a witch-con witness, that you could go to jail if you perjure yourself, and she said, I understand that. She said, I was wrong then. She said, I'm here now. This is what she's saying on the stand. It was almost not like this, well, bring it on. Sable said, you should have a lawyer in here. So she did come with a lawyer because, people had brought her in, had her a lawyer there too. And he said, you better explain to her, talk with her. He's trying to force her not to tell the truth. But she did. And in the midst of her on the stand testifying, cops from Jersey came in and they arrested her on the stand and took her from out there. But let me tell you about the power of this movement. They put 2 charges that she had already did away with. It was, she had did her community service and stuff, at this particular time. And we was able to go outside and raise bail because the power of the movement at that particular time, it was people all outside. The hallways was full. And, the shouting of, free Mumia and no justice, no peace. I mean, you can hear people on the street in a courtroom. That's how powerful the people were at that time. Okay. So we raised the money and got Veronica Jones out. And they kept her till that morning. And I was getting ready to take her home. She said, oh, no. She said, I want to go back to court. I want to go back to court. She said, because I want to look that judge in his eye to let him know that you haven't stopped nothing. There is no fear like the guilt of sitting you lying on somebody and you can get somebody killed. She said, that's my fear. And she did. She walked back in that courtroom and she stood up in that center aisle. And when Saber looked up, he said, what is she doing in here? Get her the hell out of here. You know, that's what he was saying.
Wow. Okay, and, now Mama Pam Africa. We got two videos that feature you. I want to play the first one now. And then after we play the video, we want you to come back and talk about the video. It's called Pam Africa Confronts Rich Costello on F.O.P. on Fox News. I want everybody to listen to this.
Let's talk a little about what happened this week. Rage Against the Machine is a rock group that came to Philadelphia. They performed at the First Union Center. And now on this day of the anniversary, I don't know if it's just a coincidence, you're announcing something at 1 o'clock this afternoon and on our program this morning that you're asking for a boycott of First Union and their subsidiaries. Why are you asking for the boycott against First Union?
Well, we don't have a rock group here. We have a hate group put to guitar music. Two of their biggest hits are Killing in the Name and Bullet in the Head. We're not talking Peter, Paul, and Mary here. This organization is championing the fact that this individual murdered a police officer. Anybody who supports this killer is tacitly saying that they sanction the murder of police officers.
Pam, could we get your response to this?
Well, you know what? This is really great because this man has just sat here and lied. Bullet in the Head is about cops killing black men, shooting them in the head. The Rage started off talking about they dropped the bomb. They were talking about cops like him who dropped a bomb killing 11 black men, women, and children.
Against me culminated in Mayor Wilson Good's bombing of the Osage Avenue house, which left 11, including 5 children, dead.
Rage did make it very clear that they are not about cop killers, and you know that they are calling for a new trial for Mumia Abu Jamal. They made it very plain. And again, this is the intimidation that these people have used on people like Singletary.
I was threatened to be beat up. My parents were going to be harmed. My business was going to be destroyed. Everything that I worked for all of my life was going down the tubes. I was told, basically, this guy's not worth it. He's a scum of the earth. I don't know why you taking up for him. You know, we know who did the shooting. Look, we got this guy. We're going to put him away. You're going to do what we tell you to do, or you won't be no good in the city.
Veronica Jones.
And then one day, they came to get me to go to court. Excuse me. They came to get me to go to court, and I thought I was going to court on my charges. And when I got into the courtroom, I was facing a whole room of police officers. And the 2 detectives that visited me, they were standing like in the far right corner behind all these other police officers. And there was Mr. Jamal, who I didn't even know, per se, at all. I was totally confused. I didn't know what to say. I'm looking at a man I've never seen in my life that I'm getting ready to lie on. And I'm looking at these officers that can put me away. So I just thought I didn't see anything. Sorry.
So, it was a lie.
It was a big lie. A lie that could almost cost somebody their life.
And again, this is the intimidation that these people have used on people like Singletary, Veronica Jones. You know, this is their history. People can go buy, just go to a bookstore, to a record store, get the lyrics and read what it is that it says. They're not talking about murdering anybody. They're talking about the F.O.P. history, this government history. And again, it points to what liars and bullies these people are.
And thank you for that. We have 20 seconds left. A quick response, and then we got to go.
Well, again, this is complete, utter, absurd nonsense. This continually repeating call for a new trial is a cheap charade. If Jamal publicly admitted what he did and apologized to the Faulkner family for the horror he's put them through for 18 years, I think this issue would be put to rest. But he's never denied that he murdered Officer Faulkner.
He did.
Pardon me. He's never denied he murdered Officer Faulkner.
I'm not going to sit here and let you lie like that.
He simply said he's innocent of any wrongdoing. What he's telling the public is that he killed the officer, and you can see Exhibit A in my earlier argument running our mouth now.
That's right.
He killed Officer Faulkner, and he's proud of the fact.
In front of your building.
This is an emotional issue on both sides, and we appreciate both of you for being here very much so we get both sides of the issue out.
The reality is this is a world that is by design closed, you see. Were it not for a court order and our civil action, this very interview would not have transpired 6 months ago. It would not have been allowed. Do you understand? As we speak, the state of California has announced a moratorium on all interviews with all prisoners throughout their whole system. There's a reason for that. And that's to keep people in the dark.
Mumia, thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you for coming out, and give my best to everybody, including George. On the move, long live John F.
Cause that tell me this is the plot of the plan. And set Mumia up to kill the innocent man. So free Mumia! Free Mumia! Free Mumia! Free Mumia! Free Mumia! Sabo is corrupt as hell and y'all know it. I ain't gotta say a word because he showed it.
Very much so we get both sides of the issue out there, because obviously everyone who knows this case feels passionately about it one way or the other, but we certainly appreciate you both being here.
And I thank you for the opportunity of them exposing themselves again.
Thank you both.
We're going to head out to Sue Serio now for a check on the weather. Sue?
All right, so Queen Mother Pam Africa, that's you on Fox News. Confronts.
If you want to go in the grandmom thing, I am great grandmom Pam Africa, the warrior queen.
The warrior queen Pam Africa.
Get all them grandmoms in here.
Who? Yeah, who? I like that. Who is Rich Costello?
Costello was the head of the Fraternal Order of Police, and which is one of the most brutal police forces in the United States. He was protective of, and he was one of the cops that was on the street beating, maiming, and I don't know about killing, because I don't know how many people they done killed, and but the ones we know, and because there's a whole lot that we don't know, but he was the head of that.
Okay.
The Philadelphia Union.
Yes, and you confronted him on television, and I'm laughing at the look on his face when you were blowing him up. That was priceless. We got here another video. Let me see if we can get to the next video, because we are running out of time.
That's the one, former Judge Lynn Abraham. She was the one that put me in jail, put Mumia Africa in jail. She was the one that signed the illegal warrant for 1978 when they sent over 500 cops into our home. And that's where James Ramp was murdered at by a cop bullet. And this was her running for mayor. She had been judge, DA, so this was her turn where she was running for mayor. And this was not a planned thing. We just happened to come up on something, and she was there. And we're going to tell you the rest of the story.
All right, so when everyone listen to this, the audio is not that good, so everyone has to listen closely.
I think that's a better and a safer way of handling money. The thought of the city of Philadelphia being a banker when we can't even collect the taxes that are owed to us scares me to death. No. This is woman right here. You don't have nothing to say.
Signs an illegal warrant. She talking about housing and what money it costs the city. You had cost this city millions because you signed an illegal warrant that caused the murder of 11 men, women, and children, the destruction of a block and a half of housing. I advise people, don't move the fuck up on me. I'm trying to say what I gotta say and leave, because I do not want to be here. This woman, you better understand, she's a murderer. She's been known as a deadliest DA. And I'm saying for anybody to vote for a woman who signed a warrant, said it was an emergency warrant, and killed 11 men, women, and children. Because May 13th, this year will mark 30 years. 30 years of terror that you had heaped upon the people at Osage Avenue. And you know that when they dropped the bomb, you claimed that you came in for the neighbors. Tell them about the 30 years of terrorism that you put them through. Anthony Williams, you know what I'm talking about because you lived up in that neighborhood.
We have to ask you to stop now because we really have
She ain't got to answer. She won't answer. But this is for people to know. Anytime you vote for a cold-blooded murder of black men, women, and children, acting like you give a damn about the community while you destroy the entire black community. Putting innocent people in jail, like Mumia Abu Jamal. And I want y'all to know, wherever you be at, Abraham, you can look to see us. You're right. And you don't tell me to stop.
Mayor of Philadelphia.
On the move, long live the power that expose your filthy ass.
And all the lies you told on Judge Federico Masai.
Oh, my fault.
Jackson is going to come back to haunt you.
That's right.
Y'all put that in your mind as we work this thing for this election.
I think that's a better.
All right, so that's you confronting Lynn Abrams. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we was on our way to, that was April the 1st, we was on our way to a Gil Scott-Heron event that attorney Michael Court puts on every year where he just plays his music. And like I said, she was the one, when she called me, she said, no, Pam, that's why I said, no. You know, look, you're not in court now. You know, you ain't going to, but let me tell you, right after that, her next event she went to, and when she went to speak, she passed out, you know, and we haven't seen, she's not dead, you know, but she don't do no more public, you know, anything anymore. Okay. And you know, the example here is that you got to confront these people. You know, you got to confront them where they at, and you cannot. You know, because the biggest fear I had, because people say, you know, you're a person without fear. No, I'm a person with a lot of fear. I fear the fact that these monsters be allowed to be in our communities, be allowed to. This girl was walking through the black community like, you know, like she belonged there. You know, Lynn Abrahams, and then, you know, people just, you know, inviting her into the black community, you know, voting for her and stuff. Our thing was, and like I said, that was not a planned thing. We was going to the Gil Scott-Heron event, and we got misdirected, and I asked for, you know, directions. And the guy said, oh, he said, you must be going down there to the mail, you know, forum down there. You know, he said, they got Lynn Abraham, and they named the other. I said, Lynn Abraham. It's listed around all of us. And we went there, and you seen the rest of it, while she was sitting there lying about her love for, you know, our community, and she want to build housing and things in our community. Yeah, she got love for our community, you know, to get us from out there and, you know, replace us that urban removal stuff. And they didn't give a darn how they did it. Beat, maim, kill, because that's what that was all about, really. And, you know, we refused to move, not move. Yeah, we wasn't moving.
Now, Pam Africa, in the time that we have left, because we're actually out of time, so we're going over time by a few minutes. So we do appreciate your availing time from your schedule to talk to us today. What can you tell us about how Mumia is doing right now?
Mumia is right, you know, what we talking about, a black man that is free. He's just locked up, you know, because Mumia is free to do the exact same thing that he was doing on the streets, you know, that's educating. And, you know, he has saved a lot. He got so many people off of death row, you know, to help him, you know, he's growing, he's expanding. And although they damn near killed him, you know, and if people go Google, they'll find all that information out. But, you know, Mumia survives, he lives. And and he need to we need to do the work to bring him home, because we're not without evidence. We got a judge from Arkansas, a sitting judge, black judge, and Griffin came up here. First he did, and that's on the YouTubes too. Judge Griffin, when he came up and laid all the points down why Mumia should be out of jail. And it's, we got so much with us, yet Mumia's in jail, and but it takes all of us to stand up and rise up and take this truth and into your churches, take it in. That's how we got him off of death row. They said he'll never come off of death row, but we got him because we was able to confront Congress. When they looked up, we was there, just like we was, the language was different, but the information was strong. We brought papers, we brought documents. When they had their congressional caucus and stuff, we was there, state representative, wherever it was, where people was at, we went to, if Sister McKinney said, if you want, if you want results, something, you got to do things that you never done before, and that's what we did. And we did it all and brought him off of death row. And they swore they was going to kill Mumia, but they didn't. Our next job is to get him from out here, because they're trying to kill him in jail. One more thing, I'm going to tell you, the May 20th, can I tell you about the events that's coming up on May 13th, or that's another show?
No, go ahead.
Okay, May 13th, and this year marks 40 years since they dropped the bomb on our family, and we have never allowed them to forget about it. On May 10th, here's one. On May 8th, we've been putting pressure on them. And 2 years ago, they apologized for the bombing. We didn't give a damn about no apology. And but it brought more attention. This year, May 13th is going to be made a day of remembrance in the city of Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania, city of Philadelphia, of the move bombing. And on that day, they'll be showing things. Professor Lynn Washington has done a podcast. I seen it. I could not believe it. Black folks, baby, black folks, and put together this podcast, and it's called Untangling the Tragedy. Google that, Lynn Washington, Untangling the Tragedy. The information from black folks' point of view that was there. They were journalists. A story. I mean, I had tears coming down my face, because for the first time, the actual story of what those monsters did on that day, how they murdered our children and our men, and the life that was around it. Because people don't talk about the dogs and the cats and the birds and things that was left in people's house when they emptied out. Told them, you go out, you'll be back in your home in 2 hours. They burnt the entire neighborhood, killed, burned to death, and life. So look, please, whatever you do, it's the podcast called Move Untangling, MOVE, then semicolons, Untangling the Tragedy. It is one of the most. It should get some kind of awards.
All right. Now, in closing, is there a website that you could send people to learn more about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal?
Yes, several. And the mobilization for Mumia, you have the New York, in fact, if they Google, because you'll find five of them. And then, all your information is also, he does a podcast with Mark Lamont Hill, a weekly podcast with Mark Lamont Hill from prison. He's doing this. So, all every bit of information that you want about Mumia is right there on that,
on the website.
YouTube and stuff, yeah. Okay. And you Google him, you'll get them all.
So, great grandmother, Queen Warrior, Pam Africa.
I love it all.
we wanna thank you for joining us today, and I want to bring you back next month. We can talk about the move bombing, because I think people want to get more details from you on that as well.
Oh yes, I will do that.
Okay.
I will do that.
Okay, so I will reach out to you. We will invite you back on so we can talk about move next month in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Yep. Well, in a couple of weeks it'll be over, And because it's May 13th, one thing started on the 8th. I could tell you about that. The 10th is since the bombing happened this year in the middle of the week, the 13th of May, we're doing a big event on the 10th, and then we're also doing something on the 13th, and I can tell you about all the other things. So it can either be a before or after. You tell me the times.
I will let you know. I will let you know. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
That was Queen Mother Pam Africa talking to us about the case of Mumia Abu Jamal, who is still in prison, who is facing some health challenges. And that's a whole nother conversation, because a lot of the supporters of Mumia Abu Jamal believe that they're trying now to engage in assassination by medical neglect. So we will continue to keep you posted on the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. I just want to thank everybody that joined us in the chat. Henry Cedillo, Born Justice, Black No Cop Zone, hum along if you can't sing along, and of course Bot Ricks. Bot Ricks also joins us, always joins us in the chat. So I want to thank everybody that joined us in the chat. I want to thank everybody for watching, and definitely search and do some research online, whether it be on YouTube or through a search engine, but do some research and some homework on the case of Mumia Abu Jamal. And also the boycott Netflix, the Netflix boycott continues, in addition to a lot of other boycotts that have been going on around the country as it relates to Target and Walmart. The people have the true power. And I think people have more power than they realize they have. And the system is not as invincible as many of us may think it is. So continue to engage in acts of resistance against the system in an effort to eliminate the system, which was the teachings of the great Neely Fuller Jr. And the great Dr. Francis Cress Welsing always said, if you're not doing your part to fight the system of structural racism, which is based on the myth of white supremacy, you're basically just trying to find a more comfortable seat in it. Oppression is not normal. Oppression is not natural. And the great Mumia Abu Jamal said that it's because oppression is not normal or natural, it's right to fight oppression. So I'm going to close out on that Mumia Abu Jamal quote. It's right to fight oppression. I want everyone to make sure to keep their foot on the gas, and be sure to check us out next week. Peace.